Jurgen Klopp, let's just say, the rare funny German. His style, that funny, pull my finger, boom. The pulling a hamstring while celebrating a goal. The lines where he tells a Champions League translator that his voice was very erotic. And beneath that, I always thought that balmy, eccentric outer skin, Davo, was on purpose to mask, almost to divert us. Oh, let's laugh. Boom. Ha, ha, ha. From the genius CEO of transformative cultures and the changes he performed at Liverpool.
From the Men in Blazers studios in the crap part of Bedford, from the crap part of West Hollywood, California, it's the Men in Blazers video podcast presented by the GFOPs at Camarena, the world's most awarded tequila.
We back like John Stewart. Oh, how magnificent is it going to be to have him back? And it has been a remarkable week at MIB Media Network. We had Joel Embiid join us for a beautiful interview, which will drop tomorrow, going deep on Arsenal and his love. Davo, I crap you not, this man, I've never met anyone. A lot of you guys love him, but this man, Joel Embiid, he loves him some Peter Drury.
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to say a lot of you think you love Arsenal, but Joel Embiid really loves Arsenal. I didn't see Peter Drury coming. I love that.
It was genuinely, I cannot wait for the world to hear of this deep emotional connection that cannot be denied. But so much football, so much seismic news, almost up there with the end of democracy as we know it. Lived out football style anyway. News breaking, you all must know this now. Early morning Friday, out of the blue, out of the red, Jurgen Klopp, Liverpool's larger-than-life, charismatic, brilliant, hug-dispensing leader, has decided this will be his final season at Anfield. He would step down in May. He didn't have, as he said, the energy to keep going after 9 seasons at Liverpool Football Club. But in the hysterical crucible of the Premier League, it's just done him in. This rebuild, last season's agony, finished him off. Didn't want to do the job, quote, on 3 wheels. And it takes so much to back up the words he spoke when he arrived at a very different Liverpool. An era ago, a Liverpool that had become a grey garden. He declared that he would turn doubters into believers, and he's done that. Evidently takes so much out of a human being. We often forget these Premier League managers are human beings. I am, how can I say, running out of energy. Dave, I mean, I spoke about this moment and my feelings on an instant reaction YouTube, which, well, thank you so much to all of you for your comments, your responses, their GFOPs. As a child of the city of the Liverpool, yes, a blue, not a red, but still 3% of my identity is that of a human being. And that 3% acknowledges the magnitude of this moment, what he's done for the club, my city, for the Premier League as a whole. It's a time of celebration. It's a time of mourning. It feels like, Sir Alex was the last gent of this level. I do feel for Liverpool fans who are also New England Patriots diehards. You've lost 2 dads in just a couple of weeks. But Davo, I've had some new thoughts over the weekend, but I've spoken about it at length. So I'm going to cede the floor to you. How are you, top line, processing this truly seismic news?
Well, I mean, the one thing is you were talking there, Rog, and I was thinking about the size of the job he's done. And so much of what a manager does at a football club, we don't actually see. We just watch the games. We don't see, and we read the headlines in the media or occasionally read the full articles, but we don't see everything that goes on behind the scenes. They are managing an enormous team of people. The drama that goes on with their assistants, all of the other staff who work on the football side, training, the disciplinary issues that never make, there are some clubs, Rog, where the disciplinary issues never make the headlines. It never makes the media.
There's some clubs where the discipline issues are the best things going on at the club.
Yeah, and as a Premier League manager, and also as not just a Premier League manager, as a Champions League winning manager, he's sort of won pretty much everything there is to win in English football with this club in not a short time. Yes, I do think that you said the last person really of this magnitude was Sir Alex Ferguson. I think that is, I think Arsene Wenger also is up there as one of the greatest managers. We've seen him depart. That was seismic also. There are some managers who may have sort of better records in a short term. Meanwhile, Jose Mourinho is sitting wherever he's sitting saying, how about me? How about me? But Jurgen Klopp did it. He was, I think, universally respected, Jose, which is something somewhat different. I think there's something very situational also that you mentioned about Liverpool and not just the club, just the city and what that meant to him, and that he restored belief in that part of the world, which is a really, really strong thing. And amazing that he resigns, Rog. My final thing, he resigns and he comes to this moment that is exhausting and that he can't go on at a moment when his team sit top of the Premier League by 5 points. And that feels so honest and authentic to me. But just to say that it doesn't matter that we are situationally on top. This is just all too much for me, and I really respect that.
My dad always had a phrase, "Stop at the top" was his phrase. Leave the party when it's at its prime. Move on when you really are at a peak rather than in a dark spot. And I want to unpack a lot of what you said. And we do need to say again, Liverpool fans do feel your pain. Jamie Carragher wrote, I thought beautifully in the Daily Telegraph. He said at most clubs, the managers are just passing through. If you ask supporters if they prefer to keep their coach or their star player, they're more likely to say the player. Ask Liverpool fans if they'd rather Klopp was staying and the club was selling Mo Salah, and they'd unanimously thank the footballer and wish him well. Uh, I heard that from so many Liverpool fans in my life. Um, this all at a time. The first one, I got a text from a great Liverpool supporter mate who said, all this time I've been dreading and braced for Mo saying he was going to go. Suddenly, it's Klopp making that announcement, and it feels so much worse. I talked about on Friday. This whole thing reminds me of and if any of you have a sick parent right now, you'll know how it goes. My dad's so ill, and as it is so often, it's the caregiver, in this case, my mum, absorbing all that stress
Oh,
and all the agony who comes off worst. That's what I heard when I heard Klopp, the Mo Salah agony, the Hendo agony, last season agony, the whole midfield leaving agony, all of it. Just, he can't go on. And it was so profound, so human for Liverpool fans. And for, by the way, all football fans who feel things, that subsection of football fans who do feel things. One Liverpool fan wrote this to me. He wrote, "It's hitting me that I'm going to be telling my kids Jurgen Klopp quotes like that pre-Barcelona miracle. If we can do it, wonderful. If not, then we will fail in the most beautiful way." In the same fashion, my dad told me Bill Shankly, the last truly legendary. I mean, obviously, Sir Kenny Dalglish and there, Bob Paisley before him, but Shankly hangs so heavily over the club. He said, and my dad told me Bill Shankly quotes, and he said, and this is your point, Davo, the weird thing is, Klopp's are better. They're deeper, and in his second bloody language too.
yeah. No, absolutely, and has inspired, as we saw in the NFL last weekend. I mean, he's inspiring coaches all over the world as a German football manager of an English club in the Premier League. I mean, it's remarkable.
It is remarkable. The same person said it's not just the football is the most important of the least important things mantra. It's what he said to you, meaning me, about in I think the third interview I did with Klopp when he talked about the absurdity of getting to the end of his life and being asked if he'd won anything or not, being judged ultimately. He is a very religious man
Yeah.
of incredible faith. Klopp talked about how it's clearly more important to ask, have you tried everything to improve the place, the house, the world you've been in? That so few people in football think like that, have the capacity to see the world through that as opposed to just wins and losses. It's really remarkable. So I'll say to you, Liverpool fans, to your kids, to whom you will quote, by the way, your Kloppisms will be better. The Shanklyisms, when you actually look at them, they kind of effed this up. It's not clear Shankly actually said this, but this is attributed to Shankly. That some people say winning is like life or death. It's not. It's bigger than that. There's a lot of darkness in that, to be candid, if we're being honest. But this is, I think, why there's such an outpouring right now of emotion, of grief, of shock, of wonder. David, he's more than a manager. He's almost, especially on Merseyside, and in just Liverpool Nation, a quasi-religious figure, heart and soul of not just the team. I'll say this as a gentleman of the city, he is the heart and soul of the city of Liverpool, which is a strange and wonderful city, a city that thinks it's a republic. He's almost like the Lord Mayor of that republic. Producer of ours, Jaleesa Castrodale, massive reg. She's got a friend at Home Baked Bakery. We've been there, Dave, who makes the incredible pies right by Anfield. And they wrote, the modern success Klopp has brought to the club has helped the bakery double its turnover,
Mm.
double its staff. And I say as someone from that city, what he's done for that whole area, David, that needs life, needs jobs, needs energy, needs hope, belief, dreams. It's heartbeat level stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's cultivated that, but also he couldn't have done that without also winning. And he's also been vis I mean, it's not like, oh, he could have done this as a mid-level Premier League manager. He's done that by winning. He is at the same time, while understanding that it's not all about wins and losses, he is viciously competitive, and I don't think that's a bad thing. That's what you want in professional sport. That's a really important factor. But the fact that he's able to bring that heart and that energy and that soul at the point as being as competitive as any manager we've ever seen in football, I think that's the credit to the man.
So the winning, we'll get to that because he did bring the winning, and there's a lot of it. What is it? 7 major trophies,
Mm,
um, which we'll talk about. But the first thing he did that was incredible to watch was that he got the city of Liverpool from the moment he arrived. Its passion, singular passion, its working class culture, its unique style of footballing obsession, its hunger for citywide celebration globally. Curtis Jones, I love this. After the weekend game, he called Klopp. He called him the dad of the city. Um, and that's true. He is the dad of a city, and he did it in a remarkable style. Liverpool, we've talked about this a little bit. Liverpool's a city of comedians. There's so many great English humorists who come from the place. I mean, everyone in Liverpool is pretty bloody funny because it's a place that's where life is often lived in pain, and humor is one of the greatest responses to challenge. Jurgen Klopp, let's just say, the rare funny German. His style, that funny pull my finger, boom. The pulling a hamstring while celebrating a goal, the losing of his glasses while giving out hugs, the lines where he tells a Champions League translator that his voice was very erotic. The time he mistook the word brain fog for the F word publicly. And beneath that, I always thought that balmy, eccentric outer skin, Davo, was on purpose to mask, almost to divert us. Oh, let's laugh. Boom. Ha ha ha. From the genius CEO of transformative cultures, repeat transformative cultures. Look what he did at Mainz and at Dortmund before he got there. And the changes he performed at Liverpool took a club we need to recognise, arrived at musty old dreamers. And he's taken them across the organisation to true high performing elite superpower, sustained high performing under conditions of hysterical pressure, hysterical passion, hysterical everything, knowing. I mean, I imagine doing your job when you just know that a couple of miles away from Anfield lay a flotilla of tiny planes primed to pull fan protest banners for one minor blip, and they're ready to take off at any moment, Dave. That kind of juxtaposition, which is modern football, is humanly transcendent.
yeah, and as a manager of players, as you were saying that, what I was thinking, as a manager of players, he's done almost everything that we ask a manager to do. He has taken some veterans and got squeezed the best last years out of them. He's taken high profile imports and turned them into stars. He's found value in the transfer market and found players that he could improve, who could immediately work. He's brought in young players, and as we saw that this weekend, staggeringly. And you mentioned Curtis Jones, what a player he's becoming. Trent Alexander-Arnold, what a player he's becoming. He's taken young players,
Quansah,
blooded them in the
McConnell.
first team. I know, absolutely. Bradley, like brilliant. And finally, he knits it all together. He's a tactical. How many times have we spoken on this pod about Klopp recognizes something going on in the game, he changes his tactics, he uses a substitution, and he figures out a way to win it. That's almost the holy trinity plus two of what you ask a manager to really do. And that's the sort of remarkable achievement of the
I mean,
man.
it was amazing. He did forge, as you're saying, a collective culture out of which all of this came. By the way, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking of 2 words and 2 words only, all the different kinds of players he meshed together. Divock Origi. I mean, I say these words and I genuinely get
When
shivers.
I was
I get
when I was
shivers.
thinking of how amazing he is, I wasn't Divock Origi didn't occur to me,
No, but
but
he
that's what
does to
occurs
me.
to
He
you.
does
I
to me.
love it.
He was
Yeah,
like
but it's
he was
great.
he was like a golem that Klopp could activate in key moments to torment. When Divock Origi leaves Klopp, Divock Origi is impotent. He is
Yeah.
powerless. He's just has to walk the earth and look for another job. Was linked to LAFC within minutes of leaving Liverpool Football Club. But my God, Divock Origi at Liverpool, I will tell my children, do your homework or I'll get Divock Origi to do you. I am full of fear and awe and respect for that man. I have been burnt too many times. And, I've been at Liverpool. I've been at the training ground. I've had lunch with the first team at that peak in their title-winning year. I had lunch there and was really struck by how the players, the big players, by the way, your Manes, your Wijnaldums, Bobby, crazy Bobby, didn't want to go home. They hung out in the lunchroom together for a couple of hours after they finished the meal. They just wanted to hang out, talk together, savor it. It was really remarkable to see, as was the style of football that Klopp inculcated. One that needed that connection between players, manager, and fans, that circle of reinforcement, passion, trust, giving everything, full throttle football, loud football, everyone, every game. And then some, overwhelming all comers. This stat, since he arrived, October 2015, Liverpool have won more points from losing positions than any other club across Europe's big five leagues. 148 points. That's mentality monsters. That's his phrase. Just grind it out football, exhaust yourself football. Often played by gents like Andy Robertson, mid players who Jurgen saw their greatness, turned them into legends, fusing them with local lads, Trent, Curtis Jones, bolting on, handsome gods, Big Verge, so good, smells so good. He's coming on tomorrow, and I can't wait to talk to him. There was a side to his persona we do need to acknowledge, because I know it ground on you at times. He was irritable. Yeah, he could be a grudge holder. But Jurgen Klopp was mostly, I think, a god of love. Will be remembered for his hugs, Davey. I actually once asked him why he does the hugs, what he's trying to communicate to his players with all those hugs. And he looked at me and smiled. He goes, "The hugs? I do them for me."
Well, look. But see, what I would say is that the thing that ground on me is the same thing that ground on me about Sir Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger. And it has to be the things that makes these guys the greatest managers in the Premier League era, which is they sometimes lack generosity towards decisions that go against them. They lack generosity. By the way, Mourinho also never saw a foul committed by his own team, never saw an incident, never see it. And it just grinds on me personally. It just drives me crazy. And yet it's what makes them unbelievable winners, and what makes them, when you're good, when your team deliver and deliver and deliver, you get away with it. And we know with Jurgen Klopp, even though that smacks of a lack of generosity, we know as a man he has tremendous generosity. When you were talking earlier about this quality of understanding, and when you talk about getting Liverpool, I think his faith had him really understand another enormous thing about this football club, which is the communion. Really, when you're talking about the relationship between him and the fans, the fact that, Anfield is such a special place because of the way that crowd come together behind their team and get on their team when it's not working out. But he understood the communion immediately in that church at Anfield between fans and players, and his role within it
As the conductor.
As the conductor.
I first interviewed him. He'd been there a couple of months. He'd just done that famous thing. I've got Rory Smith coming on Wednesday on a Do It Live after Liverpool play Chelsea. And I want to talk to him about it because he wrote a piece all about this. They drew against West Brom, a relegated or relegating almost West Brom. And Jurgen Klopp early on made the team go and applaud the Kop. And he was mocked by so many. Some Liverpool fans thought it was ridiculous. And Jurgen was confused, didn't understand. It's worked in the Bundesliga. You go, you forge that connection between fans, players, manager. And it was a communion, Dave. And it was based on that shared sense that he would conduct both of those things. I want to repeat something I did say on Friday, that I hope Liverpool erect a statue of Jurgen Klopp outside of Anfield, which they'll undoubtedly do. But I hope they do him hugging Adam Lallana, but they almost airbrush Adam Lallana out of his embraces. So it's just Jurgen's arms. Airbrush Lallana out so tourists can just insert themselves in a Jurgen Klopp hug. One of the most profound bronzed embraces that there can be. I just think it's just utterly gorgeous, and how he should be remembered.
I just don't know how Mr. and Mrs. Lallana are going to feel about that, but I understand what you're going for.
Adam had far more than his share of hugs. He can get on with the world. I've had a Klopp hug, and it was genuinely, it was ecstatic. It made me very briefly feel like I had hair again. That's what it felt like. But you mentioned the faith, you mentioned all of that, and he was driven. He was a man of faith, so a man of values. I do want to quickly recognise that because of it, and this is what I loved most about him, he was willing to speak out of his heart, out of his faith, out of his belief, his values, eloquently against Brexit, against the far right, against the idea of holding a World Cup in Qatar. He was a moral leader during the pandemic. He was really a compass, talking calmly, insightfully, while Boris Johnson was genuinely defecating on everything. It was Jurgen Klopp who seemed like the last sane human being left in England. But it is the winning. You mentioned the winning, restoring Liverpool to winning, by which he will be remembered. 8.5 years on Merseyside now, won the Champions League 2019, the Premier League, sadly for him, in the closed door conditions of the pandemic the following year. 7 major trophies. The revitalisation of Liverpool, alchemy, especially, I think, for me, because it was done at a time when Pep Guardiola and Manchester City were his rival, a team, and this is not bants, this is not trying to be funny, it's just fact. It just needs to be acknowledged, are facing 115 charges against them for financial challenges, and it should be noted. Funny enough, I put up on Instagram the Klopp quote that he said to me, the one earlier that I read about how when you die, God doesn't say, "Show me your trophies. What did you win?" But they ask you, "Did you make the world a better place?" At the time, he added the line when he said, "And by the way, even if you won a lot of trophies, if you cheated, God will send you," this is his quote, "God will send you to another place, a different place." And I'd always wondered whom he was talking about and what he was talking about. And we'll see how that pans out. But he'll leave with the highest winning percentage of any Liverpool manager. Great and the greats, Bill Shankly, Bob Paisley, Sir Kenny Dalglish. And we need to look. We'll look at the what now in a minute. But I mean, David, you understand this, the fatigue, the why now. These are men living and operating at an insane level of hysteria. They are human. Dude's just 56. Sir Alex Ferguson was 72, but football has changed so much since his day. This guy's had, just veneers put in. He's talked about having hair. I mean, he's had a lot of work done, Dave. And he's leaving at his peak. This is what's amazing. Endings are meant to be shameful. You mentioned Wenger. He overstayed at Arsenal by forever. Mourinho, you mentioned, now perpetually just being fired. Even the beautiful Pochettino at Tottenham, the good vibes, just running out of goodwill. That's how you leave. But no, the fact that he is leaving in peak, in the driving seat, is remarkable. There's a GFOP at Ron Haskell who tweeted us, "I respect this so much. There's something to be said about loving a game, football so much, but not letting it fully define you to the point that you can just walk away on or near the top."
Yeah. No, and that's the timing, therefore, is perfect because, in sort of looking at all of this, I did look at Arsene Wenger because he's not getting mentioned a lot in the goodbyes to Jurgen Klopp. And you look at the record of Arsene Wenger, and had he left at the right time on top, it would have been very similarly. It would have been very similar
He
when
got
Arsene Wenger
escorted
left.
off the premises.
Yeah, it definitely made our podcast when he left, but it wasn't like this. It wasn't. It
But
wasn't
his
anything
his
like
goodbye
this.
was, "Sir, you might be more comfortable walking through this door."
Yeah.
And he couldn't go back. It took years
Yeah.
for him to be able to go back. Bukayo Saka did not meet him until, was it last season?
Yeah.
It is that he's going out on top. His quote, I've got to ask you about this, is, "No club, no country for the next year. No other English club ever. I can promise that, even if I have nothing to eat, that will not happen." Um, So he's not going to take another club in England, Davo. Is that Jurgen? Am I reading too much into this? Saying Jurgen Klopp is doing a "come and get me" Wrexham next season.
Yeah, years ago, do you remember Barry Hearn came on our podcast and he
Yeah.
said something which all it occurs to me at least once every week, which is there is no truth in football. And I actually texted that line to Barry and I said, this may be the first instance of truth in football when Jurgen Klopp said he would not come back and manage an English club because I totally and utterly believe him in a business where people constantly contradict themselves and go against everything that they've said before.
Yeah, but Wrexham, Swansea, Newport,
Yeah.
Cardiff.
Newport after some of the football they played this weekend. You
Get
could
him
see
in.
it.
Yes, I
You
love
could
it.
see it.
Gegenpressing down in South Wales. By the way, God bless the US soccer bubble. Immediately
Yeah.
fanboying a move for Klopp to replace Greg Berhalter. I do admire your consistency of imagination. People are like,
Yeah.
Pittsburgh's like Dortmund, yellow and black. He'll move there.
Yeah.
What?
Berhalter's also pitching the Liverpool job.
By the way, I do think I'm saying this seriously because you're floating it. Liverpool, I know you listen to the podcast. I think that's exactly what you
Yeah.
need. Him
Yeah.
or Roy Hodgson back or Stevie Gerrard.
You
Those
need
are
a
three.
manager with 3 Gs. You
Yeah.
need 3 Gs
Take it back. What
at least.
happens now? You're hinting us towards number one, he's leaving Liverpool in a good place, squad strong, after that instant alchemic midfield transformation. Even though a layer of players like Mo, I remember it was interesting. Virgil van Dijk said this morning he doesn't know if he'll stay when Klopp leaves. God, I can't wait to speak to Virg tomorrow. One Liverpool fan wrote me and said, in that first press conference he gave at Anfield when he said it's not important what people think when you've arrived, it's what they think when you leave. I remember thinking that's a weirdly profound thing to say at a moment like that. And now it feels the perfect way to bookend his time in the city. I was excited when he arrived. I'm devastated he's leaving. I'll never forget the period between those 2 points. Look, the very best managers are judged on what they leave behind. And Fabrizio Romano talked on his podcast on the Men in Blazers Network. Here we go. That the big players at Liverpool and the ones to come will now have to be sold on to the new Liverpool project. Who's coming in? What will they have? It does depend who they bring in. The fan favourite, Xabi Alonso, once an icon of the Champions League winning team in Istanbul, played for Bayern, more for Bayern, but made it very clear he sees himself as a red, is currently shocking the Bundesliga with league-leading Leverkusen. He was coy on Friday when asked if he would go to Liverpool. He said, what's going to happen in the future? I don't know. He's so young, still so relatively untested, huge step up, never really had to deal with deal with duress. Do you want to be the man who follows the man? What do you think? De Zerbi also linked to be candid, but what do you? How do you get your head around the who next?
Well, I'm just thinking from the point of view of managers being up for the job, to some extent, how do you follow Jurgen Klopp? I mean, I'd much rather be the person that follows the person that couldn't follow Jurgen Klopp than the person who has to follow Jurgen Klopp. This is going to be difficult. And, often the fan favorite is not the best idea. If you go through the sort of the history of major replacements to Premier League managers, the fan favorites who are often players who they can see, former players who they can see like bleeding for the shirt, bleeding for the club, is not the best idea because they immediately disappoint. So I don't know, but obviously, look, it's a very smart, as we've spoken about before, this is a very smart, very considered ownership group. Klopp was a brilliant decision. And I trust that they know also a lot of the other factors that go into managing this club that are pretty unique. I like De Zerbi. I think that's a good idea because at least you've got someone with tremendous Premier League management experience who knows how hard it is and can play that kind of football for the cognoscenti that Liverpool fans enjoy.
Yeah, I mean Thomas Frank also mentioned. I'm hoping that the Liverpool ownership do the sensible thing. Really, the only thing: make Darwin Nunez player manager. That'd be so great.
I know. You've been
Guys,
so
I'm playing
neutral.
with 7 today. Just 7. Why? Just because. By the way, this is not a question, what now for Liverpool? It's also what now the Premier League. Klopp did make Liverpool the most direct challengers to Manchester City. And that real challenge must be maintained or replaced. Looking at you, Sean Dyche and Everton. But now we're in it. The last dance, Davo. The let's not dance for months of pursuing the quadruple amidst the feverish distraction, which can be both a motivator or a profound disturbance in the force. I hope it carries out in the way he deserves. This man who once told me 3 months into his job at Liverpool, he said to me, my only pressure is to be a good human being. The game itself at Anfield, Sunday, Norwich arrived. A little anticlimactic, seeing as Norwich's last win at Liverpool 1994. Both teams rest. I mean, Norwich didn't even play Josh Sargent. They're thinking very much of the promotion chase. Klopp too fielded a weakened side It was great to see Andy Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Szoboszlai on the bench and back. And yes, strong front three. But a raw talent in behind. 8 of the 20-player squad were graduates of Liverpool's academy, which is a statement in itself, including first start for 19-year-old James McConnell. The game was really just a procession. It was an effortless second gear Liverpool for fun. But David, the emotion at Anfield, Jurgen honestly looked fairly shattered when he came out during "You'll Never Walk Alone." He sat with his head down, hands together, overwhelmed, hands clenched, maybe in prayer, probably trying not to cry. He does love a cry. I'd relate to that, but what must he be been feeling, Dave, during "You'll Never Walk Alone," something he'll never take for granted again in this last dance run to the end of the season. I know. I do. I want to chat about that. No. I think it's a great question. I think it can go one of two ways, as we'll discuss. By the way, he played these players, but of course it was young James McConnell who delivered an exquisite angle ball in behind a flat-footed Norwich back line to a charging Curtis Jones, the other scouser on the team, to head home ruthlessly for the first. So much that's happening that is magical at Liverpool right now. By the way, Curtis barely celebrated, but lovely for McConnell. Trent on the bench. I was going to post this. Trent on the bench, just marveling, nodding his approval at the ball, the quality of the ball, which is the greatest compliment. But Liverpool fans, so much bloody joy. I said this in my instant reaction YouTube to the Klopp news that on Wednesday, when they qualified for the Carabao Cup final, Liverpool fans raised a banner at Fulham saying, "Imagine being us. Imagine being us." No question mark, just imagine being us. More a statement of their own disbelief at what they've shared on this journey. This was before the Klopp news, but it is a beautiful phrasing. And even though I'm an Everton fan, objectively, I can't. And it must be beautiful, beautiful, Davo. Imagine being us. By the way, quick update. Egypt crashing out the African Cup of Nations yesterday on penalties again. So Mo can now recuperate in peace in Liverpool. Awful for Pharaohs fans, great for Scousers. That distraction now over to Chelsea midweek. Roll on Wednesday night.
Okay, talking of East Anglia, the headline stealer from this weekend, sorry, producer J Dubs, Ipswich 1, Maidstone United 2, the Stones, a match that encapsulated FA Cup sorcery at its finest. Sixth tier Maidstone United on the road at Championship Ipswich Town. Can we say that again? Sixth tier Maidstone United in the National League South. Oh, God bless the football pyramid. 98 places above them in the English football pyramid. And as everyone suspected, it was Maidstone that opened the scoring after Stones keeper Lucas Kovalan repelled an early Ipswich barrage. Lamar Reynolds tucked away a majestic rainbow chip over Ipswich's Christian Walton to put Maidstone ahead 1-0 at the break. Jeremy Sarmiento, good player, drew the Tractor Boys level in the 56th minute, and the Maidstone miracle appeared to be sputtering. But only 10 minutes later, the man they call Corny, Sam Corn, calmly settled a beautiful Lamar Reynolds ball and fired home a left-footed rocket into the bottom corner to put the Stones up for good. Cue Maidstone madness at the final whistle. The Stones will take on, slight buzzkill, the winner of Sheffield Wednesday versus Coventry in the 5th round to continue their magical run. Is there anything better than a fresh cup set to get your weekend started, Roger?
God, can we just say producer J Dubs, who wrote that game recap, is a die-hard Ipswich fan. The fact that he
He
wrote
is.
that so beautifully and objectively, producer J
Yeah.
Dubs,
And at length.
I
Yeah.
couldn't
Beautiful.
be as big as you are. This was incredible. As you said, non-league, 6th tier, National League South side Maidstone, the mighty Stones from deepest agricultural country, the heart of orchard country,
Yeah.
below London. Mackenzie Crook from the English office was born there. That kind of sums up the place.
Well, yeah.
Do you know anything about Maidstone, David?
Yeah, I
Have you
do. I've
ever
been there
been
a
there?
lot. It's not far. I've been there quite a lot. It's not far from. It's actually sort of closer. It's sort of like you get out to Dartford, and then you go out to Maidstone. So like, and people still commute into London from Maidstone, and it's the biggest town in Kent, Rog. It's the biggest town. It's getting a little bit more affluent as more people have moved over. There's the high speed rail, goes down into Kent that sort of serves the Channel Tunnel. So it's easier to commute. You can get up to Essex more easily, not far from where my dad grew up in Whitstable as well. So it's an interesting area, but it is, you know, talked a lot about like the place of Liverpool, Maidstone, almost at the other side, the sort of, the effects of Brexit, the effects of, um, immigration, the sort of like it's not a rural ideal. This is what I'd say, Rog. It's more of a sort of suburban sprawl. It's the last bit of suburb in some
I'm
ways before you
sold.
get
We're
out.
moving there.
Exburb.
Well, I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. We're all moving to Maidstone. All I know about them is that they are the lower side to advance this far since 1978. They've had to fight their way from the second qualifying round of the FA Cup, which means they'd gotten to this 4th round proper by seeing off Staming Town, Winchester City, Torquay, Chesham and Barrow before clipping League One Stevenage. And here they travelled to Ipswich, Championship High Flyers Ipswich.
Mm.
Currently embroiled in the knife fight for promotion, Ipswich made 10 changes to their starting 11. The one that had clawed back to draw 1-1 so memorably against league leading Leicester City on Monday night. Maidstone, what a story in their own right, led by manager George Alacobi.
Oh, the smile on that man.
Smiling going in, beaming coming out. 98 places between these two teams. 2nd tier, hosting 6th tier. Ipswich, once a mighty team themselves. Great story in their own right. Transformed since coming under American ownership group Game Changer 20, who've led them from languishing agricultural yesteryear team to lethal force under coveted manager Kieran McKenna. God bless Maidstone now. I love this. Their last game was against Braintree Town, Davo. And their next one, are we going to cover that? It's against Punjab United midweek.
Wow.
And they play home games at the Gallagher Stadium, 4,200. For big games, fans, I crap you not, sit in trees around the ground.
Mm.
And this game opened to form. Ipswich hit the post twice in the first 8 minutes. You mentioned Lucas, the 32-year-old Brazilian journeyman goalkeeper, fleetingly of Vasco da Gama, now playing deep in the bowels of English football. He had big save after big save. Ipswich could have been 4 or 5 goals up at the half. Commentator just talking about Maidstone trying to get to halftime 0-0 when it happened. 43rd minute, 28-year-old Jamaican striker Lamar Reynolds, who's ground his way through the bowels of English football, playing for Barking, for Thurrock, for Grays Athletic. He broke on the counter so much time, too much time. What must have gone through his mind, this tiny gent from CONCACAF country, racing in behind from the halfway line? Just an incredible diagonal from Liam Soul. Found him. First touch masterful. Second, Devo, a left-footed dink so audacious, so composed, so truly shocking. I mean, it was Premier League quality that finish. The 4,000 Maidstone fans who slept to Ipswich just lost their bloody minds.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal finish. I mean, this is something that blew my mind in these FA Cup games this weekend is how many good players there are up and down the football pyramid. Many of them who do things that their Premier League counterparts struggle to do on a weekly basis. And this was a Premier League quality finish, and the sort of finish that we see Premier League players consistently fail to make. They
Wait
put
till
it
we
into
get
the
to the
keeper,
Everton
they
game.
miss it wide. And this was just beautiful football. He also did this amazing thing, Rog. He turned away before he saw the goal ball go into the back of the net. Like, and it was higher than the goal frame at that point. I would have literally watched it all the way in and followed it. I just couldn't
He
believe it.
knew. He
Wonderful.
knew. He knew. I mean, Ipswich had 77% of possession. They've been impatient. They've been unimaginative. They've been punished, stung, and how. They did manage to summon an equaliser on 56 minutes. Sarmiento snuck a shot near post, but within 10 minutes, more miracles. Ipswich coughed at the ball in the midfield. Slight foul in there, possibly, but they were punished. Reynolds unlocked the backline with a nuanced pass and he found Sam Corn, the hero goal scorer from the previous round. He scored a penalty in the last round. We talked about him then having a huge ball of tissue shoved up his bleeding nose. And we laughed and said that was his career highlight. He's going to have to show his grandkids one day picture of himself with just Kleenex rammed up his nozzer. But scratch that, because his first touch took him away from the defender. The second touch, a brilliant clinical finish. Another Premier League quality finish, Davo. Corn, hero once more. I mean, Maidstone, what is dead may never die. 2 shots of any kind total, 2 goals.
Yeah, well, that's if you take 2 shots of that quality, you tend to score goals. And you're right, Ipswich, I don't know what the final shot count was, but, in the high 20s, in the 30s, it was like unbelievable. It was one-way traffic for a lot of the game. Um, and I can only imagine what
38.
producer JW was thinking watching this
It
game.
was
But
38
wow,
shots. 38
38,
shots. Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, 32 shots of any kind for Maidstone, 38 shots for Ipswich.
Wow.
By the way, as the Maidstone fans kept singing, Championship, you're having a laugh. 38 shots, 12 saves. Just one moment, there was a scrum in front of the goal about 2 feet from the line. A dozen players hacking away at the ball like 5-year-olds, just bees around the honeypot style. But the Maidstone goal charmed. In truth, Maidstone were smashed here. Expected goals, Ipswich, 3.76. The Stones, 0.85. But they held on tactically to this rope-a-dope game plan, and it worked. They become the lowest ranked team to make it to the 5th round of the FA Cup since Blythe Spartans in 1978. Best Stones since John. By the way, sadder for Super Ipswich fan Ed Sheeran, I think, than even Supermarket Flowers. But ultimately, it's got to be said for them, a speed bump. Promotion, promotion, promotion is all the tractor boys care about. And it was magical watching Maidstone manager George Ellacobi post-game. GFOP at Marty Tantum tweeted, Ellacobi just moved up the list to replace Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. If you didn't see it, find his video. He said, he seems like such a beautiful, beautiful bloke. He said, to my community back in Cameroon, my town, Kumba, my college, St. Joseph's College, I hope I'm doing you proud. I hope I'm doing the entire country and continent proud. Keep believing, be inspired by this journey, and just enjoy watching Maidstone United. At Gwerny Simliov tweeted, at least one MUFC brings joy. Here's what I wanted to say, David. Imagine with some investment, with some commercial muscle, with
Oh,
some real vision and
yes.
organising by US
Yes.
Soccer and MLS buying
Yes.
in properly,
Yes.
the US Open
Yes.
Cup could be like this weird and wonderful, couldn't it?
Do you know what? I was going to mention this, but in the whole realm of pro rel, but I'll slip the whole pro rel thing, which is not being a Euro snob. It's actually, weirdly, I believe in the free market. America has made me do that. And free market football can be so glorious. But just in terms of a cup competition, the US Open Cup, which I believe is as old, if not older than the FA Cup, it's a phenomenal competition. The fact that we could see this in an open football system, as we're going to birth so many more players from all different backgrounds and places, all these different styles of football. You have to have this kind of competition, I believe, to truly succeed as a football nation. And America, the size of it, the wealth of it, can succeed harder than anybody. Just turn it on, flip the switch, and it will happen.
God bless, because you just have to see the memories these Maidstone fans, and there's a couple of you in our mailbag, Americans, Maidstone Americans, if you want, who live here, are American citizens, but hail from Maidstone. Your joy gives me life. That can be just as Sacramento
Yeah.
supporters, what it was like for them, getting all the way deep, deep, deep into the Open Cup. Yeah, Maidstone essentially give all the tiny teams hope they can have their day, not you, Everton. I'll add as a kicker an incredible story that came out yesterday. Lamar Reynolds, the gent who scored Maidstone's
Yeah.
first goal, he missed the FA Cup draw in which the Stones were handed a trip to Coventry or Sheffield Wednesday because he was working on his other job. because he was working on his other job as a social support worker in Ilford, away
Mm,
from football. Reynolds works as a minibus driver for a company that transports kids with autism and learning disabilities. I read
wow.
that, and that puts everything they've achieved into context. Lamar Reynolds, you're a massive hero on the field on Saturday and a massive hero off it.
Jamaica, call him up. Call him up. Just is going to make CONCACAF stronger. Amazing stuff, Rog. Really amazing stuff. Okay, another near upset that had Manchester United fans and Schadenfreude aficionados alike on the edge of their seats Sunday. League Two, Newport County, the fourth tier, two. Manchester United, they're in the Premier League, Rog. Four. United travelled to South Wales and they took a 2-0 lead in the first 13 minutes. But, Rog, these self proclaimed sheep shaggers would not go away. 2 goals on either side of halftime. The second from former dairy farmer Will Evans levelled it up. But alas, Anthony put United up 3-2 and Rasmus Højlund made it 4 late on.
Killjoys. Before we get into the joy of the game, we should note the game began with a dark, dark cloud hanging over United. Marcus Rashford,
Yeah,
his
weird.
efforts to turn himself into Jadon Sancho 2 electric boogaloo. United tried to brief the press he was sick. There'll be so much more coming out about this story after we pod. He'd stayed behind to recover from illness. Because he was, quote, not well enough to be in the squad. News then broke that he was in a nightclub in Belfast Thursday night. Shout out to Thompson's Garage nightclub. Ten Hag tight lipped pre and post game, insisting it was, quote, an internal matter and that he would, quote, deal with it. Whatever's going on, I just say it's hard to watch Rashford, still so young, still so talented, so able, off 30 goals all comps last season, new contract this season, just miserable. I think he scored just 4 times. And now this. Hard to watch a gent who's talked about his struggles with the mental side of the game at times. All I can say now, and I don't know if you've got anything to add on this, Dave, I just wish him well and whatever's going on. I hope the club deal with it with empathy and the support he so clearly needs right now.
Look, I mean, Marcus Rashford, somebody we've spoken a lot about on this pod, and with great admiration for what he does, not only on the field but off the field as well. Been a remarkable, um, you know, spokesperson, role model, really, for so many young men in the Manchester area, and for sort of what he's done as a footballer and taken a stand on various political and social issues as well. But he's still only 26 years old, and I know in terms of Premier League players, that's quite old, but he's still a very, very young guy. Um, and this seems to have been a tremendous error in judgment. I think a lot of the football press reading this into, hey, Ten Hag has lost control of his squad. First Sancho, then this with Rashford. It's no respect. He's out of control. Ten Hag has lost all control. But really, I just come down to the personal issue, as you sort of mentioned there, as we just hope everything's, okay with Marcus and that he'll be back soon and sticking the ball in the back of the net, because what a footballer he is.
To the game, which was prime, keep the FA Cup weird. Newport County, industrial seaport town in South Wales. It's Michael Sheen's hometown. It's rugby country, really.
Yeah,
There was an incredible Google list parody version of New York State of Mind. Came out about
I
10
love
years ago
that.
by local band Goldie Looking Chain. If you watch our This Week in Wrexham series, Tommy Cheese actually interviews the lead singer of Goldie Looking Chain in our last episode. But the opening lyrics, come and have a drink up at Ridgeway next to Classic Cuts. This is Newport. We don't even have a Pizza Hut. Newport down the M4 motorway, famous for cheese and chips, not Craig Bellamy. I mean, Davo, that kind of sums up this place, the Stadium Rodney Parade, 1877. One of the oldest in the league. I mean, Manchester United were descending these elite footballers, these footballers who are used to a quality of life and a quality of surround. They were descending this tiny away locker room, the faded paint on the walls, the fold-up table, the garbage cans. I remember in the press they said, just 2 urinals. The indignity, Davo. They wouldn't have known
Yeah.
what had hit them before the game, would they?
Yeah, rugby lines still sitting on the field. Temporary stands built there. It felt like one of those old. I mean, 5 listeners will get this, but it felt like an old episode of It to Knockout with the way that they had the temporary seating around some sort of rec field somewhere.
It felt
It
like
was.
CONCACAF. It felt like
It did. It
United were
was.
playing in
You're absolutely
CONCACAF.
right. Yeah, that sort of yellow tracks around. It really did feel Concacaf.
And this United squad assembled for $1.2 billion. Newport's almost exclusively loans and frees. I think the 100 times higher wage bill United have kind of sums it up. That's the match. By the way, in that regard, the $508,000 Newport will get for this game will be a lifeline for this club. And by the way, this club, we should quickly say, Newport County, an incredible sum in their own right, went bankrupt in 1988. They went into exile for a quarter of a century. That's now their nickname, the Exiles. They'd ground their way after going bankrupt from the eighth level of football, the Hellenic League, made it back into the Football League in 2013. They're now 16th in League Two. Um, that's Wrexham's league, facing up here to eighth in the Premier League, 76 places above them, Manchester United. And by the way, Manchester United, who bar the goalkeeper, Bainadir, who was making his debut, and the absent Rashford, this was United's stronger side to face Newport in this crazy the temporary stand, the tin roofs, the branding for local businesses like Pure Vans and pawnbroking, local pawnbrokers. I mean, this is where United found themselves. And we all tuned in to watch the mighty United be chopped down to just the most humiliating levels in a febrile atmosphere. And that feeling was just squashed. United scored early and often. Bruno Killjoy helped them go 2-0 within 30 minutes. Mainu finished lethally, impressively, his first goal for the club for the second. I was like, oh, United have found their level for the first time this season. They were honestly, it looked like I was going to take the dog for a walk. I couldn't watch. It was like they were playing football with a confident Sydney Sweeney, ate chicken wings on hot ones. Didn't it feel, Davo? It was like rubberneckers go home. There's nothing to see here.
Yeah, and especially, Man United bringing all their exotic haircuts into South Wales there. It was like, all those haircuts, you can feel kids waking up in Newport today. Suddenly there's a lot of peroxide is sold out from all of the local booths.
I like that
Um,
garnacho.
yeah, yeah, but just the haircuts all over the place, and Anthony, and just the haircuts. It was like they came from a different age.
Yes.
Um, but there was an honesty and an ambition about Newport's football that was League Two. League Two teams didn't used to play this kind of football, Rog. We're seeing football played by these clubs that is just outstanding, and they came back on the back of sort of an audacious out of the box strike. It took a deflection, but it was a phenomenal goal, and he didn't look like he doesn't try that every week. It was
I
wonderful.
watched footage of the Boston Celtics halftime show that blew up on Twitter yesterday, where there was like 8, 9 year olds just going for it, just firing up shots against each other from like the halfway line, all of them hitting them. And that's what it looked like. I mean, out of the blue, after seeming overawed for the first 30 minutes, slop on the edge of United's area, and Bryn Morris, a man who, journeyman, played out most of his life in League Two, just lashed the ball. Why not? I'm going to leather it hard, high into the Gwen Knight, took a deflection off Lissandro Martez, past the despairing by India. Just an astonishing moment. I mean, it was instantly, undoubtedly, one of the top 10 memories of the entire 21st century for anyone from Newport. But then, it was just searching belief infused the whole team because we're Manchester United, now going to Manchester United. I mean, this was like watching Ten Hag and his football players have a proctology exam live on television. And it was honestly one they all failed because 2 minutes into the second half, Will Evans, 26-year-old, story well told, only became a professional in 2022. Famously a Manchester United fan, even more famously was a cowhand. I crap you not, a cowhand before turning pro. Legit milk cows on his family's farm in mid Wales, playing in the pastures. Here he opened up his body after beating Varane to the ball on the near post, took a deflection on the way in again. Um, Will Evans don't care. Gent reeled away, dropped Cole Palmer's celebration. The cold, ice cold blood in my veins, Sally. David, a dairy farmer from mid Wales. Todd Burley apparently is going to spend 100 million on cows for Nicholas Jackson to milk away from the game, David. But what an ecstatic moment of sporting transcendence.
And the goal was even better than that, Rog. The first goal came from a sort of a long clearance from the goalkeeper that ends up sort of rebounding out, and amazing strike and deflection puts in the back of the net. This is another one from a goal kick from the goalkeeper, sends it out there. They win the ball on the wing. Amazing crossfield ball, an amazing released back inside. And I mean, that quality of the cross from the left to Will Evans, who did something which, you and I both follow football clubs where we have not seen a striker do this in 3 seasons, Rog. Runs down the channel, beats the man inside, goes to the near post to go and finish the ball. Talk about a Premier League quality strike. This is stuff that I've not seen Broha or Jackson or anybody else who we've had playing up front do in their entire career in a Chelsea shirt,
Cow
is
hands.
get to the near
More
post,
cow
run,
hands.
go and do it. Do you know what?
I've
Sign
milked
Will
cows.
Evans. You
Dave,
don't need
I've
to
milked
buy.
cows.
Yeah, you have. I
Yeah,
know this about you.
I've
On the
milked cows.
kibbutz,
Yeah,
right?
I
You were milking
almost in an
cows.
alternate life, almost went to cow husbandry school. I loved Will Evans' goal because that was just cow milker, respect cow milker, dairy farmer, union, unite. But it was also Bands FC strikes again. Manchester United are being dunked on by dairy farmers now. It was amazing.
Can I just say that Todd Burley, because I know that he's your mate. I know that he listened to this podcast. Todd Burley, you don't have to buy a $100 million dairy farm for Nicholas Jackson to milk cows. You could just buy Will Evans. I mean, is that not? That's another.
Why would you do that though? If you can spend $100 million on a dairy farm, why would you just buy Will Evans for 30,000? Why would you do that though? What logic is in that? Look, GFOP Mark Dolce sent us a raven where he noted the best thing about this game was the cutaways to Eric Ten Hag in that moment, because the lighting, being what it is at a small stadium, his face was largely in shadow, as if some art house cinematographer had ordered his lighting guy to turn down the key light and underscore the coach's inner turmoil. David, the embarrassment was palpable through the television screen. Chance of you getting sacked in the morning, ringing out around Newport. Jim Ratcliffe's strategist, Sir David Brailsford, in the midst of his club audit, was looking on stunned. He couldn't have been more stunned if someone had slapped him across the face with a piece of wet cod. He looked at Anthony rolling over in agony. God bless. United fans were starting to wonder out loud, why is Anthony still on the field? And the answer came. Luke Shaw cut inside, floated one arc wickedly off the post, fell straight
with his right foot.
Yeah,
Amazing.
amazing. I mean, he instinctively told himself to cross it. He must have done, because he hit it first time smartly into the net with that woefully useless right limb. David, finally, a first goal of the season for Anthony. It was astonishing. Dude dropped to his knees, pointed to the heavens. He knew what a miracle it was that he just done a big boy goal, then pounded his Manchester United badge to the travelling fans. I was surprised he didn't miss, to be honest. It was almost like, the bad news, guys, I'm staying. I love this club and I'm going to stay for a long, long time. The reaction was insanely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Newport, Ant.
And all I'm thinking is he worships the same god as Jurgen Klopp, which is phenomenal. But yeah, it was a big goal, and a big goal at Newport for Manchester United. This, by the way, is why Major League Soccer clubs and the billionaires that own them don't want the US Open Cup to work, because the banana skins all over for your big clubs and your big players and your big managers. Like, who wants it?
Who wants to lose at Newport, Rhode Island? Who wants to get beat by Newport, Rhode Island?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Dave, got to say, Newport made a fist of it. They did charge on in frenzy, forced corners, trying to grasp that equaliser that would earn a lucrative replay at Old Trafford that dreams are made of. But there's no dreams in football. Hoyland cleared up some scrap in the 94th minute. And it ended, as it had been so early in the game, with that 2-goal United lead. But you could tell from how hard Anthony, then Hoyland celebrated their goals.
Oh my God, that was a big celebration. It's like he just scored against Arsenal away. It was amazing.
How truly panicked United had been through the true ordeal of a game against fourth-tier duffers. And that individual absolution or vindication is in front of too many United players' minds rather than just the collective context, the reality, aka the reality they're in. The United players walked off at full time. J-Dubs texted me this. He said they've got all the casualness of people who've just escaped a building during a 5-alarm fire. Bruno said post-game, the FA Cup is United's chance to win something. That is what makes this important. I mean, to me, it's like a toupee made of silverware. Just for Newport, I'll say the end of a valiant run with defeat, but one filled with fight and exclamation point moments, which I do believe will be remembered forever down there in South Wales, which ultimately, to me, is what football's all about.
I'd bite your arm off for a toupee made of silverware, Rog, that's basically my preview of the Carabao Cup final.
We're going to get to that. And behold, this toupee made of silverware. Hurrah!
Such a good idea. Tottenham 0, Manchester City 1 after a profligate first 88 minutes. City scored the game's lone goal when Spurs goalkeeper Guillermo Vicario went hot potato on a KDB corner, dropping it right at the feet of Nathan Ake, who poked home the winner. City get their first win in 6 visits to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and march into the next round.
Yeah, top 5 game Premier League wise, but so much less of an occasion because, FA Cup. Pep seems so bored in his pre-match interview. He was asked what he hoped to do, and he just said, "Make it to the next round," with just like the apathy of an intensely competitive dad having to go 10-pin bowling with his 4-year-old kids and have to roll this 16-pound ball down the lane equipped with bumpers. Only intrigue was at Tottenham was a place where, as you said, Man City had not so much as scored a goal, Davo. 5 defeats out of 5. Surreal at that new stadium. Last season, the treble season, Pep was asked what was left in football for him to achieve, and he quipped, scoring a goal at Spurs away. And Spurs, God bless, without Sonny, Brennan Johnson, Richarlison, Timo Werner, I think they had one shot on goal all game, totally flat, City dominant. Credit Tottenham, they defended well. Home fans cheered blocks and big tackles. But as the clock ticked down, it would have been a nightmare for City. Probably worse than losing would have been another game to add to their fixture pile up. Stats obsessives revealed that City had just had their 100th failed shot on goal at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. When they went and scored the big boy one, KDB swung in the corner, Vicario punched it into the back of Van der Ven, and he fell over the goalkeeper as he did so.
Yeah.
Ake swooped in to jab the ball home. First ever goal for Pep side, who've done everything else in football, scored finally at Spurs' new stadium. There was a VAR check, but it was a goal, right, David? There was a little bit of a push on him, but a goalkeeper, they're meant to be the apex predator in the box. We saw this at Burnley a couple of weeks ago. They're meant to obliterate all comers, and this new trend of them tumbling under the slenderest touch, the refs, they're just not having it.
Yeah, definitely. There's been some briefing of referees. The referees have had a meeting,
Yeah,
Roger. We're not
yeah.
going to allow it anymore. We're not going to stand
We're not
for
having
it.
it.
It's an abuse of the game and the
Yeah.
principles on which it was built. Yeah, so I wasn't surprised to see. I wasn't surprised to see that.
City then did their quite incredible and truly frustrating corner routine where they tap it, hold it right in the corner, winning corner after corner to emasculate their opponents. It's almost a relief when the final whistle comes. We do need to acknowledge for Spurs the joy of James Maddison returning after 12 agonising weeks out. But this defeat, we talk about this at length another day. Tottenham season now, barring a miracle in the Premier League. No trophies for Big Ange in his first year. The dart record continues. 2 League Cups won in the last 30 years and over 16 years now without a trophy. But you raised this question earlier, and I do want to ask this about the game. We've got Guardiola, sang the City fans down the stretch of the game. And it was interesting to hear Pep post-game, I will miss Klopp. Without him, I will sleep a little bit better. And he doesn't admit it, but he will be back. Palpable levels of respect and admiration. I do wonder what's going through Pep's mind right now and his own end date, whether this gives him more energy to keep managing or he too realizes his own mortality, what he's missing out on by being a Premier League manager and that intensity, the hours sucked in, what he's missing with his family. And he too decides, you know what? Let's come up with a date for the end of the thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's I don't know if this is just sort of the stuff of literature or fiction. I'm trying to think if I relate to this in any way with anything in my own life. But I do think that I do imagine that when you lose your greatest adversary, when you lose your greatest competitor, when you lose the person that does keep you up at night, some of the energy, some of your raison d'etre, some of your reason to train and compete and fight that hard must go away. You must lose it in some ways. And so I imagine that this is difficult for Pep. I feel like I'm quoting a movie. I feel like there's a movie in which this happens, and I'm going to remember it in a second. But it is the idea that it suddenly
Do you think
goes away
what
from
you're
you when you
saying
lose
is
that person.
um, without Batman, the Joker just finds being evil boring.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
what is this jokering? What is the point? What is the point to all of this? We will see. And I think a lot more to come. I'm fascinated actually hearing more of these coaches reflecting and refracting Klopp's words and processing it over the course of next season. I wonder what Steve Kerr is thinking too. Someone who follows Jurgen and what he says and what he does so intensely. This will have reverberations, not just within football, but the world outside. Oh, but Davo, to the big game, the Chelsea.
Yeah, Chelsea nil, Aston Villa nil. Talk about shots on goal not being converted. It was entertaining, Rog, but it was ultimately a fruitless, scoreless draw on Friday night at Stamford Bridge. The biggest chance came for Villa in the 12th minute when Douglas Luiz tucked home a deflected Moussa Diaby shot, only to have it disallowed for a handball. Fair upon review by VAR, which I've never said a bad word about, Rog. Chelsea looked in control for the remainder of the first half before Villa applied the pressure in the second, but in the end, neither team could find the back of the net. The two sides will replay at Villa Park in February for the
Free
chance, I think, to
football.
play Leeds or Plymouth or someone
Ah,
like that. Can't remember.
God, this game began with fizzy Chelsea fans singing about their imminent Carabao trip to Wembley and
Wow.
ended with the prospect of another replay. A game filled with chances made, chances blown. Positive for Chelsea because Villa have had their number in recent games. This was actually progress, as was their shucking off the albatross of dominating games and somehow still losing them that cluttered the first half of the season. But Davo, midweek, obliterating Championship duffers Middlesbrough, who it should be said self-destructed, playing out the bat right into Chelsea's press over and over. But a second Carabao Cup final in 3 years against the same opponent, Liverpool Football Club. I said on Wednesday's Do It Live that Chelsea are already English football's champions of amortization. So that Carabao Cup, if you win, it'll be a double. But this is a first final under the Todd Burley Clear Lake Capital ownership. I'm happy for Pochettino, who is a lovely, lovely man. Be fantastic to see him win something in his first season there. Don't really understand what a Carabao is, but $1 billion can no doubt buy you a lot of it. We know that Mourinho in his first Chelsea era used a League Cup win over Liverpool, Rafa Benitez Liverpool in 2005.
Ding, ding, ding.
Mattia Kesman scoring a 112-minute winner in that one to really build as a foundation, a culture of winning. Dave, is Wembley enough for the first Poch season?
Look, I think that, you and I have laughed a lot about the Carabao Cup over the years. That I can't take it all back and say, yes, it's super important. But, not only for Mourinho, it was important that first Carabao Cup win, but for Chelsea in the mid 1990s, it was that success with, Vialli and that great team that sort of propelled that team forward and had them taken more seriously to the extent that Roman Abramovich did eventually come in and buy the club. So I think Carabao can be situationally important when you're trying to rebuild. And I think that the fact that they rebounded against Middlesbrough, we made a lot of their loss up in Middlesbrough in the first leg. So we can't completely eliminate what happened in or deny what happened in the second leg. They played fantastic football and they demolished them at home, and they were really strong, and they've been superb in this competition all the way through. They've won games, they come from behind, they've won on penalties, they've showed some heart, and we have seen, not playing particularly great football, we have seen Poch start to build a little bit of momentum at Chelsea. Their league position is improving, the fans are feeling a little bit better, they're able to sell the executive suites for a little bit more money.
Yeah,
I
isn't
hear
that
I
why
hear
we
that a
watch
lot from
football? Isn't
I
that
hear
why
that
we
a lot
watch
from
football?
people who work at Chelsea, that on the dynamic ticket pricing, it's looking a little bit better amongst Chelsea fans right now and amongst the people who'll pay for the luxury suites. So there's a little bit of momentum, and I think that final's important. Of
Dynamic
course,
pricing, that's why we
of,
watch.
of course,
Yes.
of course.
Jane.
Then Jurgen Klopp announces his retirement, so it's going to be that's going to be the story of the day, and I think it's going to be very difficult. Chelsea have made a lot of finals in the last few years. We forget that, Rog. We've lost some FA Cup finals. We've lost at Wembley a few times. We're sort of due
Who
one.
cares? Silverware's just a toupee, baby.
It is, but I'll take it. I'll take one of those. But yeah, this wasn't a great Chelsea performance, but we've seen a lot of not great Chelsea performances this season that end in losses. It was a 0-0 draw. We fight again. We live again to go and play at Aston Villa the second week of February, I think, or at some point in that week. We'll take the fixture congestion. We got a lot of players. Suddenly, it feels like coming back from injury who we need minutes for. So, yeah, that's about as much enthusiasm as I can summon.
Liverpool away on Wednesday. I'll have a Do It Live right after the final whistle on our Men in Blazers YouTube page with the magical Rory Smith joining me to talk about that game and no doubt a lot of his thoughts on Jurgen Klopp. Come and be with us. Oh, that's me and the mighty Raw, Wednesday night at 5 p.m. Eastern Time.
In other action, Newcastle defeated Fulham 2-0 behind goals from a Longstaff brother and Dan Burn. Brighton smited Sheffield United 5-2 in a casual 7-goal affair, and some really ugly scenes as Wolves beat Birmingham rivals West Brom 2-0.
Yeah, these were scenes reminiscent, honestly, of the hooligan days of football's yore. Mass fights with weapons, riot police descending upon part of the stadium where the players' families were actually seated as rival fans battled each other there in the stands. Fans were dragged off, soaked in blood streaming from their head wounds. There was a scene where a West Brom fan was being led across the field covered. You've probably seen this, football fans, in
Yeah.
his own blood, just bald head, completely red. Police surrounded him, and the Wolves fans started chanting, "Let him die! Let him die!" I mean, it's just football, lads. These are scenes that English football has not seen in many, many years. I mean, probably should have been predicted. This was the first Black Country derby in 12 years. Felt like a throwback to the 1980s. The only difference was they wouldn't have stopped the game in the 1980s, David. This was just football back then. But it was really harrowing to witness with our modern reality.
Yeah, and the terrible thing about it, as you just referenced, is it was probably a minority involved in the fighting that was probably organized fighting as well, Rog. Very often these fights are pre-organized, pre-discussed, pre-planned. But then to hear so many fans like egging it on, screaming for it, chanting for it, singing for it. And by the way, that's not to pick on Wolves fans. It could have happened the other way around as well. It's disgusting. We're not the tribalism of football, Rog. I I find it harder and harder to get behind, and I find the bants exhausting when it gets to the full on appreciation, supporting of violence. It just is. The game's lost me.
God, the crowd trouble sees the headlines, but at least you said Wolves now unbeaten in 7. How Pedro hat trick took Brighton past Sheffield United, made him odds on to be the next Brighton player to decamp for Chelsea for Parzo cash. FA Cup is now everything for Newcastle, who clipped a flat Fulham. Tim Ream back for them. An away game against either Blackburn or mighty Wrexham awaits for Newcastle. Those two teams play tonight.
Yeah.
Please make it Wrexham. Rob and Ryan going up against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia would be one of the most oxymoronic matchups in the whole world of sports.
Rounding out the rundown, Rogers, it so often does, even on FA Cup weekends. Everton.
Not anymore.
Everton won. Luton Town 2. Rog, the non-Florida Cup trophy drought continues. Like Tottenham, Rog, you got nothing else to fight for this season unless you come in and win the league. You never know. I am sorry.
Yeah, this is tough, man. This one hurt. Ross Barkley returned to Goodison Park seeking revenge like Liam Neeson in Taken 1, 2 and 3. Everton fans booed his every touch, which made me feel a bit sad for him. This lost boy found again in the humble surround of Luton, 30 years old now. I'm actually happy for him to find his belated swag. But then felt a bit different in this eyesore of a game. That other blue, Andros Townsend, won a corner. In it came. DCL missed an easy header to clear on the front post because, well, Ross Barkley, that cheating Benedict Arnold turncoat bastard, pushed him with two arms in the back. The ball dropped, went in off Mikalenko as Barkley ran off claiming the goal. I guess because of his shithousery, the commentator actually shouted in the moment, "Everton opened the scoring," which made it feel all the more just confusing and sickening. VAR saw nothing.
Yeah, they opened up the net for the opponent to score.
It was
They
just-
did open up the scoring in some ways.
It was astonishing though. VAR saw nothing. It was honestly, you'd think the Baltimore Ravens were playing. It was like that unfair, predictable, but terrible because Everton aren't we? First half, so awful. I mean, this was a ground battle between 17th and 18th place teams. It was terrible. Everton playing two men up top. We just say one was DCL, God bless. One was Beto. I would prefer Beto O'Rourke to play up front for Everton Football Club. Goal threat wise, pound for Beto, bless him, tries. He's just David. He's just one of the single worst footballers I've ever seen trying to play football. It was I ache for the man.
Oh, your kids love him. Your kids love him, Rog.
They do love him. One
They
of my
do.
kids asked for a Beto jersey. Have you ever had a server? I've been a waiter. It's a really hard job, but a waiter who's so clearly ill-suited, like just hopeless, and you almost feel so sorry for them that you give a massive tick 'cause you just feel terrible for them. It's how I feel about Beto. It's just like, I mean, Dave, I look forward to this game all week, and I had done. And
You
it was
did.
so, yes, it was so excruciating. I'm at this point where I'm like, why do I choose to do this? Why am I making my kids do it? Then suddenly, Beto slipped in Jack Harrison, who'd had one of those games where he's good at running, terrible at passing. He hit the ball at the goal. Tim Krul, who'd just been bigged up by the broadcasters, let that ball squirm under his big old Dutch body. And suddenly I'm like, Everton are back. We're going to Wembley. Imagine being us, Dave. It felt incredible.
Yeah. I mean, you said this. it's- Everton wouldn't be in 17th place without the deduction. We should say that they would be higher up the table. This is the one time I've seen them play this season, since they started winning early
Oh,
on, where they and then that amazing rebound post deduction. It's the first game I've seen where they really played like a 17th place team.
it was
Yeah,
terrible.
it
What
was
did you think
not
of
good
Beto? I
football.
mean, I would look at Beto like I look at Andy Kaufman, the late great Andy Kaufman, doing his like surreal slapstick performance. It's just truly, truly. I have never seen a less calm decision maker in key moments. It's honestly wonderful. It's that bad. How Everton
For
paid $25 million
When Will
dollars,
Evans is
David?
available, Rog.
Yes. How do we pay 25? What scouting system said yes, $25 million? Unless we, and I mean, it's cheap if you're money laundering. But God, my youngest child turned to me in the second half. He said, "Dad, this feels like a punishment that you're making me watch this, like when you ban the Xbox." And it would get worse for Everton. A friend of mine, Rob, you know who you are, sent me an article from The Atlantic entitled The Thrill of Defeat by Tim Alberta about the surreal pleasures of watching the Lions actually win. God bless you, Lions Nation. Um,
Mm.
his article pinged into my inbox, and I crap you not, within a second, 96-minute slot from a corner, 6-goal Everton have conceded from corners in the last 7 games. Dan Juma, he'd come on minutes before, could have cleared the ball twice, elected to just prod it charitably towards Corley Woodrow, a Luton forward who had not scored since August, and he tapped home to grab last gasp victory for Luton. Davo, I honestly, in that moment, I felt more shafted than Greg Olsen.
It was a Yeah, it was that the last minute of injury
Yeah,
time? It was
yeah, last
late
kick.
in the game. It was just an awful way to lose the game, and I sort of think that maybe a needlessly given away corner at that point as well, if I
Yes,
remember. They
yes.
didn't need to give away a
But
corner.
Everton, aren't we? Is what we say.
Yeah.
Here's, I want to say, this is the truth. We have let Luton beat us twice at home this season. That is humiliating. And what stung was not the loss, it was genuinely the pathetic nature of the performance. Worse, though, Davo, as you said at the beginning, like Tottenham, no trophies again this season for Everton Football Club. Same as it ever was since 1995. Davo, I calculated after the game to this very second, as I speak, 28 years, 254 days, 0 hours, 7 minutes since we last won a trophy. Davo, over half of my life, I have cheered for nothingness, for a void, essentially to feel undead.
That is Florida Cup erasure, Rog. One. Uh, Two, the fact that you still love football this much and spend so many hours a day obsessed with every part of it, and yet Everton disappoint you and have disappointed you so much for 28 years. It is really a testament to how much you love the game. I've
And
got
I
to hand
still
it
do
to you.
it.
You
And I still
love
do
the
it.
game. You love it so much.
28 times I have geared myself up to believe we will win the FA Cup. We will get to Wembley. 28 times I have done it again, and they've crapped the bed in front of me. One of my mates, Scott, a great Everton travelling fan in his day, texted me to say, um, even on a weekend when Jurgen Klopp announces he's leaving Liverpool, Everton still end up the more miserable team on Merseyside. Davo, imagine being us. Honest truth, greatest trophy on offer, other than the Champions of Points deduction, you'll never sing that, is to survive and avoid relegation. There is no silverware given, but that's our everything. That is our purpose. That is our existence. to
But
merely
you might
cheat
win the
death.
championship. You might win the championship. That would be a trophy, Rog.
David, why would we want to leave this hell, this purgatory?
I know
My whole goal,
exactly.
my sporting goal is to not die, to cheat death. There's no greater feeling.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll see what happens. Okay, before we go, we do want to mention everything we've got happening at Men in Blazers this week, powered by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Tomorrow is a massive, this is so dark. Tomorrow is a massive day here at the MIB Media Network as you unleash an interview for the ages with Joel Embiid just days after the Sixers star dropped that 70-piece for the ages. Rog, I hear he's proper football, proper football.
Joel, is he ever, Davo? Honestly, the process was in fantastic form. I cannot wait for you to all hear this beauty, which comes out on our pod feed and our YouTube channel tomorrow. Big love to you, Joel Embiid, you magical man.
Okay, can't wait for that. And do not forget GFOPs. Follow the Women's Game on all social platforms at Women's Game MIB. That's on Twitter, Insta, TikTok, YouTube, all the platforms. And look for a new pod with Sam Mewis and none other than US Women's National Team striker Mal Swanson, who has just returned back into training for the Chicago Red Stars after that devastating injury that forced her out of the World Cup. Also, a reminder to Vamos listeners, the mighty Herc is moving to our early kickoff pod feed. A great interview coming up this week with the brothers Booth, Zach and Taylor, those two Utah-born siblings, getting ready to clash in the Eredivisie this weekend. Just search Men in Blazers early kickoff and subscribe for that one. Finally, Rog, can we get a toast to close us out?
I want to raise my third first Bud Light of the day to Brandon Vazquez, the 25-year-old American international from Chula Vista, California, just left from Cincinnati to Liga MX side Monterrey, and he's announced himself in Mexico with just swelteringly, blisteringly hot form, 3 goals in his first 176 minutes of play, a man of the match performance at the weekend in a dazzling 3-1 home victory over Atletico San Luis to send Monterrey to the top of the table. The first goal, if you've not seen it, on 15 minutes, it was astonishing. It was so far away. He headed the ball with power and precision from way downtown, essentially further than I could throw a bloody ball. Herc Gomez, my friend, once an American international who thrived in Mexican football himself, tweeted, "You won't see a better header on God's green earth." And for more on Brandon Vazquez, he was Herc's guest on Vamos recently, and I love that bloke. I love that interview. As much as I love seeing Opta this weekend put out a tweet calling Vazquez Superman, to more for him, to more Americans just making audacious moves and just enforcing themselves with confidence and wonder. Vamos, Brandon.
We need more American dairy farmers taking up the game, Rog. That's
get on it.
Wisconsin.
Get on it, Wisconsin. We're looking at you.
Okay, you can follow us on Twitter at Men in Blazers, at MC Davies, at Rog Bennett, on Instagram at Men in Blazers, at MC Davies, on Facebook, Men in Blazers, on Twitch, twitch.tv/Men in Blazers. Also at TikTok, look for it at Men in Blazers, and you can always email us at meninblazers@gmail.com. We love and cherish getting your emails.
I love what you've said. We always thought that we wanted America to stop playing football in the streets. We don't, do we?
No, we need to see dairy farmers.
In the pastures. Start playing in the pastures. It's a rural sport, Davo. Oh, yeah. God, take us away, baby.
Venderpunkt.
War Pig.
Was that a Rabona?
I like snacks.
Balls win.
Take that, Gloria.
Balls lose.
To Tweed.
Abrigado, rock on, mate.
Kung Fu Fight in America. Love you, Davo.
Love you, Rog.
Oh, champions of points deductions. You'll never sing that. Listen to the full version of this podcast and all our podcasts wherever you get your pods. But first, subscribe here for more Men in Blazers videos and courage.